Hello, Mike Waller of Britannia Motorcycles here, welcoming you back to another section of our BSA Trials build-up. We're going to start today on the wheels, probably one video on the front wheel and one video on the back wheel. Partly because as I was thinking about what I was going to say, it struck me there was a whole host of things that I could mention about wheels in general for anybody that's building any other kind of special or just simply wants to change the wheels on their bike. So, why would you want to change the wheels on your bike? Well, for a competition bike, there are a couple of very practical reasons. This, as you know, is a BSA, obviously. There's the standard BSA wheel, the good old comical hub. Even though it's got an alloy hub, this wheel weighs in at, let me check, 16 pound with brake plate. Here's the TY250 wheel that we're going to use. Went mad with a polisher during the week. Wheel with brake plate and everything the same, just over 10 pound. So on the front wheel alone you can save 6 pound. The other thing, of course, with BSA is for the early models, for the later models like this, for some reason they went to a 20-inch front wheel. And I can't find 20-inch tyres anywhere, not even for a road bike, and certainly nobody makes a 20-inch competition tyre. So from a cost point of view, to buy yourself the 21-inch rim, whether a chrome one or an aluminium one, and of course if you want to do that, they used this hub in the Triumph Adventurer, I think it was classed as, which was a B50 frame, slightly modified, with the Triumph 500 twin in it. And you can get the 21-inch rim and consequently the right spokes for that, but you're still going to be heavy. But for the price of a rim, you could basically buy yourself, go on good old eBay, a pair of proper trials wheels, alloy rims, nice little hubs, etc. So that's the route I went. Now when you start thinking about this, there's two possibilities. If you really plan ahead, which I never do, you look at the best wheels possible. Things like the mountings, the brake mounting, all that type of stuff. Or, if you just happen to have a pair of wheels laid around, as I did with the first trials bike, you use them. Now I used a pair of wheels from a Honda TL125 trials bike. And they were fine, but as I'll show you as we go along, the front wheel caused me some significant problems. I'm going to zoom you in now and we're going to talk a little more specifically about wheels and about the problems that can arise. Well, the first thing you're going to want to know is that the wheel actually fits. So you're going to have to measure the amount of space you've got and how big your hub is with the brake plate in it. Don't go rushing out and buying yourself a wheel and then getting back and finding that it won't actually go in. So there's the first thing. Second thing to bear in mind when you're doing this is exactly how the brake torque arm is fastened. Now you're going to find two different types basically. This is the TY, and a lot of others are like this, with a piece on that allows you to have an actual torque arm. Now that makes it so much easier to fit into everything because you can move this around. Most folks have got a lug on them somewhere that you can put an arm to. Some wheels, however, and this actually is another Yamaha wheel, are going to have the type where there is a boss on the fork and the boss slides into this. Actually like the earlier BSA ones did. Now if that happens, you've got two routes that you can follow. If you can get some alloy welding done, etc., you can always make yourself a suitable piece to go in there, a block of aluminium, and then get that welded onto the fork so you can go together. The other route you can go, and I'll show you how I did it with the TL125 because that has a brake plate like this, is you can make yourself a fixture that goes into here and will also go to the fork. Now what I did for the TL was I actually just took two pieces of sort of about 1-inch steel plate, sort of 1 inch by, I think it was 3/16, something like that. And I made one piece that came up to here and drilled it so the wheel spindle would go through. And then onto this piece I welded a suitable boss to go into there. Now of course that wouldn't just hold it on its own because it would start to spin. So then I had another one at right angles which bolted into here. So it was sort of an L-shaped piece. Now that works fine. Fiddly, and if I'd have used the TY wheel, or as I did in a later one, a Montesa quarter wheel, it wouldn't have been a problem at all. I'll show a picture of the piece I made up in a minute or two. So we've got to think of that with the brakes. Now with the TY, if you want to put TY front wheel in this forks, you're really in luck. Because if we take the brake plate, when that brake plate is in there, let's see, let's just stick that to hold it, it's a bit small. But when that brake plate is in there, voila, it lines up with the lug on the frame. You just need to put an alloy spacer in and there you go. Or if you wanted, of course, you could put an arm on, but I found that, I couldn't believe it when I put the first one in and I was just playing around to see where I should put the arm, and I just happened to look and it was lined up perfectly. So that's what I do. I put a 3/8 bolt straight through there with just an alloy spacer. Now the other thing, of course, you've got to bear in mind when you're putting different wheels into different forks is that TY comes with a 12mm wheel spindle, but the BSA one is a lot bigger, as you can see here, and it also has the little relief in it for the outer bolts, which are slightly closer together. So for the TY wheel we're going to have to make up some bushings to go in there. Now the bushings are important as well. With the TY spindle, although it fits all the way through, it only just fits through, so I don't really have enough room to put a nut on there. Now I can look around, find another 12mm spindle and find a longer one, and then I just need to make up 2 bushings and the spindle will go straight through and put a nut on. But what I've done in order to use this spindle is I make up a plain bushing on one side to get us to the right size for the clamp up, and then the bushing on this side I actually thread for this 12 by 1.25 thread, so that when the bushing's in I can just screw it in. You can have it either way. You can just put the bushings in, put your wheel in, put the spindle through and screw it in, or what actually I normally do is I put the wheel together with the bushings on and then just use it as the BSA wheel is. I take the end caps off, put the wheel in and put the end caps on and make this a captive spindle within the wheel. So what we're going to do now is measure up to see exactly how much we need in the way of space. So for that you want to put your brake plate in, like so, and also on the TY there is already a spacing piece in which has a foam seal behind it, a felt seal rather, just to keep the dirt out, although the bearings are sealed bearings. So what to do? Put your wheel in, like so. Now the first thing you've got to do is make sure the wheel's central in the forks, so it's nicely straight in line with the back wheel. The little jerk in the video there is because when I looked at it I realised I was still pointing down here and you couldn't see me actually doing this measuring. So you pop your wheel in, put it roughly central, then you're going to find somewhere from each fork leg that you can measure it from. It's a little difficult on the curve, but fortunately with these we have the nice flat faces that the mudguard stairs go onto. You've got to measure it front and back, just because this spindle is smaller. I'm saying it again, look, and you can't see. The spindle down the bottom is smaller, so these can twist a little. So just measure front and back crosswise to make sure everything's square. Then I just use a little machinist square there. Measure this side, and then go over and measure the other side, and just move the wheel accordingly till the actual rim is exactly centered. Now when you've done that, you can move down and measure the gap at the bottom. So let's show you that. So you're going to be wanting to measure this in here and on the other side also. There's any number of ways of doing it. You can use a pair of inside calipers if they're small enough to fit in. Or really simple method is you just cut yourself a piece of cardboard and fit it in almost like an enormous feeler gauge. Do that both sides, get your measurements. I've actually already done this, so we're all set there. You then need to add in the width of the bottom of the fork, because we want it to come right through from the hub to the outside here to get plenty of strength and rigidity into it. That will give you the length. Then obviously the hole you're going to drill through it is the outside diameter of that wheel spindle. Then you also need to measure the diameter of the spindle that it's replacing. That's easier than trying to actually measure the inside with the caps on, because they're not completely round. So you measure the OD of this, and also the OD where the little relief is, so that you can sort that out. So as I say, I've already got the measurements for this, so now we're going to move over to the lathe and we will make the two bushings for these wheels. Here's the fitting for the TL125 wheel. Not exactly as I remember it, strangely enough. I didn't put an L in this. It was a straight piece of flat steel. You can see it's drilled at the bottom, so the wheel spindle holds it there. Then it comes up and it's fastened to a lug on the fork on the other end, so this won't move at all. And then there is where the boss is welded onto the back of the steel flat. Just fits into the channel on the brake plate. Simple, but it's worked for what I've had 7 seasons I think out of this, and I do a lot of riding on my own land here. So you can, as you see, use that type of brake plate in a fork leg without a boss on the fork. We're going to use a piece of 3/4 round, and we need to take it down to 0.677 inches. So 3/4 round of course is 0.750. So let's get ourselves going here. As I said, I never plan anything, so I suppose I should. I made sure I actually had enough sticking out of the chuck, which I didn't quite, before I got started. You see, this is the beauty of watching my videos. You actually learn bad habits as well as everything else. Alright. It was 2 1/16 of an inch, so there, that gives us plenty. If you're wondering why I pulled the chuck to get it started, also in the back of here you'll see a glow. In the winter, I must get it sorted, I have a couple of little problems with this lathe. One is the magnetic switch won't stay on unless I warm it up, so I've got a little heat lamp behind it. Never has a problem in summer. And the same also is that sometimes the motor won't spin up straight away, and I'll trip my little fuse there. So if we have any electrical types who could give me a comment and say what I'm doing wrong, then I'd be most happy. But I haven't just had a chance with it. The thing with the motor is new, but I saw the thing with the switch last winter as well. So sometimes it does it with the motor, sometimes it doesn't, so I will just give it a little help to get it going. Round. Let's see where we are. 736. 736. So 736 has got to go down to 677. So that's 0.736 going down to 0.677. I used to be able to do this in my head when I was a lad, but there you go. 7/16 is 9, 8 and 13 is 5. 59 thou. 59 thou. All right. So we'll take 20. That's 50. At least it should be. $686. What did we say we wanted? 677. So that's 9 to go, which is what it should be. I'd said 59 and we've taken 50. So we'll take another 9. So it's 50, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Of course, this doesn't have to be to the thou. Obviously, BSA never made a wheel spindle to the exact tolerance, but 675.5, if you can see that. So that will do for me. Now the next thing we want is the little relief, which we'll do partly with a tool and partly with a round file. So we need to be from a quarter almost to a half inch. Again, this is not that important. Should be 627. So let's see how we're doing. That's 657. So what I'm going to do, as I say, is just take that off with a round file. It says changing tools and all manner of things. See, that's what I was talking about. Wonder what it is. There we go. That will work now. So the next thing we have to do, we've got our OD. So now we are going to, oh, we've got a centre hole in this, so we needn't bother with that. We'll start with a little pilot hole. Next stage is a 27/64 drill. And finally, a 12mm ream. Go. And now we'll part it off. Go. Got the little hint about using a welding rod in the chuck from watching Adam Booth. So there we have our first piece made. So let's go and see if it fits. Right, first thing is, did we put our little relief in the right place? And is it big enough? There you go. Just nice to the end of there. You can, I keep mentioning about these bolt holes. You'll notice these two are closer together than those two. I think they're designed like that to annoy you for the number of times you put them on the wrong way around and can't understand why they won't go on. So we'll pop them on. Got the nuts to hold it in place. Our wheel. There we go. And that goes through, out the other side. Should be when it's tightened up. And there you can see a nice spacer there. And you probably can't see that again, can you? Whoops, wrong way. What I'm actually doing is just there we go. 3/8, which is exactly what it should be. So this side is right. Now we're in and we know we're good. I'll recheck this measurement and then we'll make one up for the other side and we will tap that so that this spindle will fit straight in. So let me check the measurement, and I think what I'll do is turn down the outer size and what have you, and then maybe just pick it up again as I tap the thread and then we fit it into there. Here's the second bushing that I've made up. Now it's basically the same as this. It has the relief for those two narrower studs, but the two differences are, one is that it's threaded part of the way, and the other, you'll notice I made from a larger piece of alloy, because on this side I like to have two reasons, a larger flat there. One, it goes up much better against the brake plate, but also I make this width here the same as the distance that I need it to be in the forks. So this part is the actual spacer. That way when this is in the forks, you press the wheel up against this side and you know you're absolutely right. Because there is a little bit of wiggle room on these. You can move them in and out slightly. So that goes on there. It would go through your wheel and then onto here, the other way around, and it screws into there. And then when that's plumped in the fork, as I say, that holds the brake plate exactly right, so the wheel is kept where it should be. So let's put them in the forks. So this one goes in here. Actually, I suppose we could get that out. Just put a couple of nuts on to hold things in place. Now, as I mentioned, there's a little bit of, you can move this backwards and forwards a little bit. You can see that there, within that. So that's why I like to have the spacer on this side to hold everything exactly right. So when this one goes in here, you see, it's up against there, and the wheel is held in the right position. And in. And that in. Go. And then we can just screw that into here. Now I'm going to bring you around this side of the wheel to show you how I fasten the brake arm, and also one other nice little thing of using the TY250 wheel. As I mentioned, the TY spindle is just a little short to be able to put a full-size nut on. You could put a thinner nut on, but it is fortunately just long enough when it's screwed in to be able to put a split pin in. Also, you'll find actually when you tighten the end caps up, it just crimps the bushing enough that it really grips on that thread. I've used the same method on my bike, and as I was saying about the brake arm, this is 7 seasons and I've never had a problem with it yet. Now, the other nice thing is that when I was first setting up to see where I was going to put the torque arm for the brake, as I was moving it around, I suddenly find that it's almost an identical position to that. It's about a 1/16 of an inch higher. You've got to take the slightest amount out of here. But once you've done that, you make up a 1/2 inch spacer, pop it in there, and there you are. Nut on the back, and there's your brake plate fastened in very nicely. Anything that saves work is good. Okay, so that's basically everything for the front brake. We have to make up one little fitting here for the cable, but I'm not going to do that until I've got the handlebars and the cable on so that I can see where it wants to be. The brake arm will actually go in behind there and come out here and work this way. So that all fits up very nicely. There it is. Centered in the forks. As I say, 6 pound lighter than a BSA rim. Next thing we'll do is the back wheel, and when I deal with that I'm also going to talk about rim offset, chain line, things like that. So there'll be some more general information, and I'm also going to talk about lacing up a wheel and truing it. That might even take a whole video, I suppose. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.